Hey,
Hey,
welcome. Thank
welcome.
you. Welcome. Um, Take two. We had
Take two.
another one. It didn't work. So we're gonna go right on in. We're coming from the book of Daniel today, chapter 6. If you don't know Daniel, Daniel was a really uh, his figure was very important.
Hmm.
Okay, he as a teenager, his country was defeated. His country was defeated, and he was captured. Him, others his age, they intentionally went after young men that were noble men. They were from noble families,
Hmm.
and they took them captive and took them to their captive um, country, the country that overtook them, and basically indoctrinated them and trained them to be noblemen and government officials in that country. They
Hmm.
taught them the language. They educate them math, science, stuff like that, literature, and and government. So they were to serve before the king, eat at the king's table, do all that stuff. Well, very early on, without getting into too much detail, getting bogged down, he proved himself over time. Him and some of his friends from that capturing, they proved themselves to be more than efficient, more than up to the task.
Hmm.
They stood out even among the noblemen, and they were all teenagers at the time when they were kidnapped. Um, that's what the scriptures and what all the accounts said. They were young men
Hmm.
taken from their families, so they already proved their integrity. God was already with them. This is during Daniel's later part of life, and I want to say, see, he's on his third king at this point. He had proved himself over and over again to be a man of God. God stood behind him. He was able to interpret dreams. He had visions of the future and different things. God talked to him. He was able to do and be not only good at his job, he was he was also accused on many occasions of being excellent, having an excellent spirit, being faithful. Nobody liked him, and not only just people that loved and knew God is saying this. These are the pagans. These are
Hmm.
the evil people. These are some of the captors. Some of these are the kings. Are saying, oh, well, like, man, he was great or whatever, and oh,
Right.
he's like this, and you can trust him with anything, and he's just diligent and excellent and everything. So he would talk about how much of an excellent spirit he had. So by the time we get to chapter 6, his character has been established. Everybody knows, and at this point, he's one of the top three rulers of the land underneath the king. So you have the king, these three or four rulers, and then you had these other government officials under them, and then everybody else, right? So you had the king again, the governors, which is one. Dan was one of the governors, and then you had they call them the satraps underneath there,
Right.
right? And I can't remember how many of them are. Just know there's a
It
lot of
it
them.
was what is it? 120.
A lot of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
so, so
Yeah.
they at this point, Daniel, you know how those people at your job and just make everybody else look bad because they so good at it, you know.
Hmm.
But it was like this, but in the extreme. I don't
Right.
know how bad a job they was doing. I don't know if it was on purpose or they were just inept at their job, but they were not pleased. Can you read um, number three, verse number three,
Verse 3.
verse three, six
Did
percent.
okay, then Daniel disgusted himself about the governor and the stripes because of an excellent spirit was in him, and the king gave thought to setting him over the whole realm.
Yeah. He distinguished himself above the governors and the satraps. And again, that's the excellent spirit thing. It's more that's been mentioned more than once at this point. Um, and then the king thought to set him over the whole realm. So
Mhm.
again, I told you he already at the top part of the government. You got him, you got the king, you got this group of governors and everybody else, right? He's already at the top.
Right.
The king is like, man, I should make a whole new layer of government just to put him in it.
Come on.
I should make a whole new
Right.
thing. And if that sounds familiar, if you're familiar with Genesis, there's another man that was a captive who was a slave that had that same people trusted him to that amount too, and that was Joseph. He's young. I was going to tell him the same, and that was Joseph, and Joseph was a slave. The man who had him as a slave uh, put him over everything in his house except his wife and him. Like you over everything. Right. He trusted him with everything.
Everything he had.
Low key, he's his steward of all his property. No, and then he went to the prison, and he started running the prison. And who put the prison in charge of the prison?
Right, family couldn't even recognize
because he was just so excellent in his spirit. He was so different. So this is what we're talking about with Daniel. He was just so, again, an excellent spirit was with him. And then verse 4 says, so the governors and the satraps, they was jealous, sought to find some charge against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find no charge or fault because he was faithful.
Oh, yes, it is. That is.
Nor was there any error or fault found in him. So he had an excellent spirit. He was faithful, and they couldn't find no fault in him. Like there was no he's perfect, and it was just grating on their nerves that he was so good at everything. He was so good at it. So when they got together and they were trying to figure it out, these men said, "We shall not find any charge against Daniel unless." So this is where it get crooked. Unless we find it against him concerning the law of his God. So these governors and satraps thronged before the king and said thus to him, King Darius, live forever. All the governors, and this is the lie part. All the governors of the kingdom and the administrators and the satraps, the counselors and the advisors have counseled together to establish a royal statute. So literally, when they say everybody gathered together because they was mad at Daniel, literally everybody got together. They said the counselors, the advisors, the satraps, the administrators, everybody got together except Daniel. Right. So when they went before the king and they said, we all figured this out together. We all did it. He said, and it says that there should be a royal statute and make a firm decree that whoever petitions is another word for prayer. Any petitions any god or man for 30 days except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. So the thing is, when you're talking about petitions or prayer, it's talking about worship. It's talking about acknowledging it's God for 30 days. And for pagans, that's not a big deal at this time because the king was seen as the god. Not the God, but a God. So he was like, okay, yeah, put it on me. All the glory to me, you know. Right. He's like, yeah, rain the glory down on me, you know. That's kind of what his friend was like, okay, that's cool, yeah. And nobody, he was like, nobody's gonna not praise me because I'm awesome. That's, you know, I'm just putting that part in there. But he was like, yeah, it's cool, it's cool. Now, O king, established a decree and signed in writing so that it cannot be changed according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which does not alter. Therefore, King Darius signed a decree. And I don't know if we talked about it on this live or a previous one, but the law of the Medes and the Persians means when they signed it, right, they could not go back against it.
That's it. When you say law, when a law is made, it's done. You cannot change it.
Yes.
You cannot come back and change it or nothing like that. And it's the same thing with God. Once he say it.
And this Medes and the Persians law, right, is setting it down, like, you know, the term set in stone. That was this. Yeah. It was set in stone. So even the king could not overturn it. There was no voting. There was no nothing. Whatever it was, it had to be like it was serious when you put it in there. So when he signed it, that was it.
That was it.
Okay. And it says, now when Daniel knew that when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went home. And in his upper room with the windows open towards Jerusalem, he kneeled down on his knees 3 times that day and prayed and gave thanks before his God. And this is the kicking part. as was his custom since early days.
Right.
So if you go back and you think about before when they made this decree, when they was meeting together all secretly and clandestine like, you know, when they was meeting, they knew this about Daniel. It was like, unless we make something about him and his God, he ain't, you know, he gonna be free. He just gonna be out here. So we got to do something that we know he do and make it illegal, basically.
Right.
They knew he prayed every day without fail. He was going to do it 3 times. The window was going to be open. He was going to be facing Jerusalem. We got to make that illegal. We got to make it illegal. So that's what they did. So after he heard it, and this how Steph, because again, Daniel's only accused of 2 things in here.
Right.
He's accused of having an excellent spirit.
Being faithful.
And being faithful.
Being faithful. Yeah.
So what did he do after he heard the decree? He went home.
It was custom.
And then he went home. Verse 10. And in his upper room with the windows open.
With the windows open.
Towards Jerusalem. He knelt down on his knees 3 times that day.
Yep.
He did the same thing. He was faithful.
Yeah.
He proved his faithfulness. He did it anyway. He's like, well, and if you know anything about Daniel, if he's already decided, if him and the Lord has already decided, it's already decided. It's already decided. He almost got killed before this for something similar. He's like, he didn't have to trick him, but he had to pull some sway just to get his dietary needs met. Right. So vegetables. Yeah, because he couldn't eat from the king's table. He couldn't eat the meat from his table because they had dedicated the meat to gods. And at the time that was against the protocol, and he said he wasn't going to defile himself. Now he did other stuff that wouldn't defile him, but he knew that for sure was going to defile him. He said, I can't do that. So right out the gate, he was like, I ain't doing that. Right. Let's figure out something else. And so for this, he was like, no, I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm gonna keep doing it. And then it says, verse 11, it says, then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. And they went before the king and spoke concerning the king's decree. Have you not signed a decree that every man who petitions any god or man within 30 days except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? And then the king answered, the thing is true, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which does not alter. So they answered and said before the king, that Daniel, see that they hating, I just feel it. That Daniel, who is one of the captives from Judah, does not show due regard to you, O king. See, they was trying to damage his image. They didn't say that Daniel, the governor, that Daniel, our elder, that Daniel who's been faithful, that Daniel who's of excellent spirit. No, they said that Daniel, that captive from Judah. They ain't nothing but a captive. Just a savage, you know, I'm just playing. But it's probably not. They probably did mean it just like that. He said, O king, for the decree that you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day. He's still doing it. He's still petitioning. He's still praying. And we said and you said, O king, that he shouldn't be praying, basically. I'm saying that part. It said, and then the verse 14. And the king, when he heard these words, he was greatly displeased with himself. And set his heart on Daniel to deliver him. And he labored until the going down of the sun to deliver him. So he felt that deep, basically. The king felt it. Right. He was not pleased with his previous decision. He was like, oh, I didn't even think about Daniel. Because at this point, Daniel already proved himself. Daniel is going to be missed. If something happened to Daniel, he's going to be missed. Because he was already in good favor with him. So it was hurting him. And he couldn't blame nobody but himself. The king couldn't. It says, and then these men, talking about the liar backbiters, approached the king. That means they thronged before him, ran up on him and stuff. They approached the king and said to the king, know, O king, that it is the law of the Medes and the Persians that no decree or statute which the king established may be changed, they reminded him it's time to throw Daniel into the lion's den. Okay? Just remember, they all around the throne and stuff.
Right.
But the king gave the command, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. But the king spoke, saying to Daniel, "Your God, whom you serve continuously, he will, yes, sir, deliver you." Then a stone was brought and laid at the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it in, and with his own signet ring, and with the signet of the Lord, that the purpose concerning Daniel may not be changed. All right, so we about 15 minutes in. You're like, so what's the word from the Lord? Just wait, just wait. We're almost there. So verse 18 says, "Now the king went to this place and spent the night." I'm sorry, I read it wrong. "Now the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting, and no musicians were brought to him. Also, his sleep went from him." So basically, he's depressed and he's an insomniac, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, what's gonna happen?" He pacing. He just hurt. He's sick. He's shook. Okay. And it says, "And then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste to the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he cried out with a lamenting voice to Daniel. The king spoke, saying to Daniel, 'Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continuously, been able to deliver you from the lions?' Then Daniel said to the king, 'O king, live forever. My God my God sent his angel and shut the mouths of the lions, so that they have not hurt me, because I was found innocent before him. And also, O king, I have done no wrong before you.' Now the king was exceedingly glad for him." And this is the kicking part. This is literally, and this probably should be my favorite part, but this is my favorite part. And then the king was exceedingly glad for him, and commanded, this is it, commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no injury whatsoever was found on him, because he believed in his God. Keep going, we're gonna keep going. No, that's good, that's good. "And the king gave the command, and they brought those men who had accused Daniel. They had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the lion's den." And it keeps going. The ones that was throwing him, they threw them in there. Mm-hmm. And they threw their children in there, and their wives in there. And their wives in there. Mm-hmm. "And the lions overpowered them and broke all their bones in pieces before they even came to the bottom of the den." Now, the rest of the chapter talks about how great God is, and how the king had put this declaration out to everybody in the kingdom. Is like, Daniel, God is the best. He is the one. Okay. But it's time for the word of the Lord. You ready? Are you ready? So this is what came to me. Back in verse 5, it says, "These men said, 'We shall not find any charges against Daniel unless we find it against him concerning the law of his God.'" They had to turn what was good concerning their God into something negative in the eyes of the people and the government. Mm-hmm. It's not for everybody, but there's somebody gonna be listening. And I'm here to tell you, what you're doing is not bad, and what you do for God is not bad. But your enemy, I don't know who the enemy is, I don't know what form they come in, mm-hmm. but they're going to try to turn whatever you're doing good. Mm-hmm. They're going to try to turn it to look like it's bad. Mm-hmm. In the eyes of, and government can be authority figures, in the eyes of people, in the eyes of whoever that you currently have a good presence with. They're going to try to use whatever that is and change it or turn it. In Daniel's case, they made it illegal for him to pray.
Right.
Was nothing wrong with the prayer? The only thing they could find him guilty of was being having an excellent spirit and being faithful.
Yeah.
And they changed and they sought to change how his relationship with God was viewed. They changed it to being illegal. I don't know what that is, but this is a warning. Okay, and then I just want you to know that the enemy is a pro at spinning the facts in their favor.
Mm-hmm.
That's deception, scheming, lying, setting traps, plotting, fault finding, being shady, being messy, making themselves sound like they're innocent. Because have you ever had anybody do that passive? I don't want to say passive aggressive, but the passive just. And you can't really put your finger on it. It's like I know you're saying something, but it's almost like trying to hear somebody whisper and you trying to catch somebody whisper. Somebody, it's something like they pros.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna continue. But at the end, Daniel ends up getting punished by the physical government, by the physical government standards. Okay, but God sent His government's diplomatic immunity in the form of an angel to cancel out the punishment because he was found, and this is the quote, was found innocent before him, talking about God. So what I mean is the government, his physical authority that he was subject to in that land, found him guilty.
Mm-hmm.
However, Daniel is held to a higher authority, a higher kingdom, and he was a citizen of the kingdom of heaven. He was one of God's servants. So God ultimately decides how he's going to be punished. So when he found him faultless, he was like, "Yeah, you're gonna go through this punishment, quote unquote, that your government down here has set out."
Right.
But literally, Daniel just set it out.
Mm-hmm. That's what he did.
Set it out. And I want to say in some of the kids' stories, it even had to where they had to make sure it wasn't in there. In some of the kids' stories, it said that God made the angels his pillows or something. I remember seeing that somewhere.
Right.
That is not in this account. That might be something. This is New King James Version. It might be in a different one. But I know in the kids' stories, I remember seeing that. Like he was laid out on it was like a drawing or whatever. And Daniel was like laid out on top of a few of the lines, and they were just like this or whatever. And there was angels like sprinkled out in the lines then, or something like that. But he said it out, and he didn't get out of the quote unquote punishment until the king opened the door and had the stone moved and everything, and had him fished out basically of the lion's den for him to be removed from that. But God took the bite out of the lions. He closed it up, did not allow them. And these was real lions. These not, and I'm sure they were starving because I'm sure they were starving. And the angel had to come and close their mouths up. Right. So that might be for you too. You might actually have to sit through the punishment, or you sit through the whatever you were accused of, or sit through whatever. Just know that you're not in there by yourself.
Right.
If all you're guilty of is having an excellent spirit and being faithful,
right.
If it was a scheme and you trust and you believe in God and you didn't run in fear, you didn't change, you go forward in the Lord.
Right.
Daniel didn't do nothing extremely special for him to be in there. He didn't do nothing outside his normal.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. He heard what the king said. He was present, and then went to go be present with the Lord.
Right.
In the windows at his house. So he didn't do anything extra, but God saw that he was not guilty. So God took care of him. And then it says God. This is again probably should not be one of my favorite parts, but Daniel chapter 6 verse 24. This is when this is after Daniel was taken out. Now the people who had accused them, there was 100 and something. He said
100,
satraps.
yeah, 120, 120, I think.
120. Because you had again, you had the king, you had the governors, and the satraps. Or satrap. Forgive me, I don't know. I'm just messing it up. But SAT, satrap. Don't matter.
Yeah.
He caught, and it says, I'll say it again, the king gave the command, and they brought those men who had accused Daniel and cast them into the den of lions, and their children and their wives. So God also allowed those who accused Daniel to suffer the same punishment that they caused him to go through. But he didn't go save them. And they suffered it threefold. Not only them, but literally their households was cleaned out. They kids, their wives, all of them. And apparently all their bones was broken before they even hit the ground. So I feel like, no, that's not. What I believe God is saying is that he's just not going to leave you out there. If you follow him, if you're his servant, if you're his son, if you're doing what God tells you to do, you're doing it in the right spirit, you're doing what you're supposed to do. Faithful. You being excellent, you being faithful, and you are listening to God, you are moving with God, and your enemy out here, and your enemy is not people, by the way. Principalities and powers, that's outlined in thrones and stuff that are in heavenly places. Right. It's the kingdom of darkness that's after you, and who's after people at large, just mankind at large. And if you seem to be in the way of what they're trying to do, they're gonna try you. But God is there for you. In Romans chapter 8, as a matter of fact, we're gonna go ahead and turn over there. I hadn't planned on turning to anywhere else, but we're gonna go to Romans chapter 8. My page is sticking together, good old onion skins. Love it. I love it. I got it. Well, you can read it. In verses 31 through 34, it talks about how God, Jesus, and Holy Spirit are coordinated and are working. So who can bring a charge against God's elect? Who can do it if God is judging?
You said 30 and 31?
31, start 31.
Okay. It says, what then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but delivered him up for all of us, how shall he not with him also freely give us all things?
Keep going.
Okay. Who shall bring a charge against God's elect? If it is God who's justified, who is he who condemns? If it's Christ who died and furthermore is also risen, who is even at the right hand of God, who also make intercession for us.
Right. So basically, Jesus paid it all.
Right.
He's sitting on the right hand of the Father. Okay. The Father is the judge. So when somebody think courtroom setting, when the persecution come up and God the Father is listening, okay, look to Jesus. Jesus said, got it. That one's ours. God is like, look over there. Holy Spirit is making intercession. He a witness. They praying for us. All right. Well, no, that don't count. Persecution is making cases day and night, and they would go through if it wasn't for the Lord who was on our side. That is more than just a song. That's more than a song. So God has been faithful. He's calling us to be faithful. And a lot of we sing songs like "Be the Light." You want to see in the world, be the change. You want to see light is really hard. One point of light is really hard to see if everything is bright. It's not until there is darkness. where you can see defined points of light.
Mhm.
So it's getting real dark out here. It's getting real dark out here. Make sure your headlights work. Make sure your lights work.
Yep.
Amen. Um, be faithful. Continue to be faithful. Continue to be excellent. Stuff is gonna happen, but God is with you. Don't be afraid. You're not alone. Who can stand against you? And I'm gonna read this last part,
Mhm.
and then we out. And this is verse 35 of Romans 8. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulations, or distress, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or peril, or sword? As it is written, for your sake we are killed all day long. We are counted as sheep for the slaughter. Yet, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. For I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other created thing shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. All right, I love you. Pray the Lord bless you and keep you in my prayer. May his face shine upon you, may he establish you and give you peace. If you have not accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, all it takes is a word. Lord, I believe that you raised Jesus from the dead. And
he died for my sins.
And he died for my sins.
Yes.
And that's it. That is all you need. You don't have to worry about getting ready for God.
Right.
Ain't no getting ready for God. Because if you get ready for him, what was Jesus for?
Right.
If you need more information, leave us a comment, inbox us on social media. It's Kingdom Life Worship Center, Devarie, Bernicia Jackson. We love you. Be blessed.
Be blessed.